What's going on? You listen to King Campbell and Ujumbe podcast and Ujumbe meets message. And today's message is we are live. It is Memorial Day weekend and all the things. So I'm very grateful and thankful that you guys are here and that you are with us. So um, hit the like button, subscribe, and all the things. So check this out. Um, this is summertime. It is summertime, and hey, this is about to get good. You understand me? I'm just very excited. And in school, we just got done with school. I'm done with teacher stuff, and so now I am about to get down with the get down. Y'all thought I was I was pretty active last spring. Just you wait. This summer is about to be on. Okay, so let's get to it. So ancient creators, crocodiles, and the cosmos. Yep, the return of the Sekhem Sobekneferu. Yeah, we're not done. We're not done. Yeah, we still in it. We still in our queen. We almost at the end though. The Queens of the South series. Here's our book, the first female pharaoh, Sobekneferu, goddess of the seven stars. We are almost done with the book. All right. So yeah, I'm very excited about that, and I got a surprise for you guys a little bit later on. But yeah, we're gonna talk about the ancient creators, crocodiles, the cosmos, and the return of the Sekhem, Sobekneferu. Don't forget to hit the like button. And so today, um, I'd like to welcome you guys back for those who are new and those who are returning, for my veterans, for my alumni. Shout out to alumni. Okay, greetings. Okay, Miss Blue, greetings. Okay, and so now, you and now we're about to get into part 7. This is part 7 of the series, and today we're going to go deep into the mystery beyond Dynasty, into the very architecture of spiritual power. As we've been going through this, I'm gradually getting you guys through this process of going from, say, the physical into the metaphysical. All right. So remember last week we discussed Nefertiti and Queen Tide. They were it wasn't just mother-in-law and daughter-in-law kind of thing, right? It was a spiritual kind of thing. It was some issues going on, right? The old guard versus the new guard, right? So now we're about to get into that. So in the twilight, between myth and memory, between the old age into the middle kingdom, where say crocodiles say guard hidden gateways, and the ancestors whisper beneath stone, and some become stars. One rises from the depths of the Nile sacred current, Sobekneferu. Okay, she is shining right now. I don't know about you, but I learned a lot about her. I knew nothing about her. Okay, so like I said, when I say we are learning together, we are really learning together. So she was not only crowned by Heteru, but she aligned herself with Sobek. For some, that may have been a good idea. Others, not so much, right? So she ruled not only the kingdom but the threshold between worlds. This is what I believe. She became that algorithm. She became the avatar of this era. And so it wasn't just a history lesson. This is a retrieval of power. So here it is. Today, we will discuss chapters 30 through 34 of the book. The first female pharaoh by Andrew Collins, the mystery of the Mazghuna North. Mazghuna North. Okay, there's a pyramid complex. What's beneath the pyramid? What's beneath that particular one? Okay, the entrance to the Duat, the return of the Sekhem Sobekneferu, the ancient place of the ancestors. Okay, this is Memorial Day weekend, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. The seven serpents and the Kemetic science of Neith and the veiled queen. And I'm checking roll. So get something to write on, something to write with, and we're going to get down to the business because it's the weekend and it's about to be summertime, and we're going to learn something. Okay, so Sobekneferu was she really building something here, or she was preparing for something else? Okay, what force was she dealing with, and what does that mean for us, right? Now, so here's some questions. Okay, what hidden knowledge lies beneath the pyramids? Okay, of Mazghuna North, and how does it serve as a portal? Because the pyramid text did say that these people, the ancestors, was journeying to the imperishable stars, right? So what does that say? And how does Sobekneferu return as Sekhem to symbolize the resurrection of the divine feminine power within the spiritual science of ancient Egypt? Yeah. What is the connection between the seven stars of Heteru, the seven serpents, and the Kemetic blueprint for cosmic ascension? And how does the temple of the crocodile, code of Sobek, and the wisdom of Neith reveal Africa's original sacred code? Because we tend to forget that Kemetic culture is African culture, and that information came from the South. Shout out to the fam in Sudan and Ethiopia. That information came from the South. All right. So don't forget to hit the like button. All right, let's go. Now, the mystery of Mazghuna North. The mystery of Mazghuna North. I'm gonna crack this book over. We're gonna get into the book because that's the best way to handle things, right? To get into the book. Now, the mystery of Mazghuna North. All right, most of the graves he opened. The archaeologist Ernest Mackay back in 1910, he went to do some field work in Dashur. And most of the graves he opened had previously been ransacked, but enough archaeological materials remain to show that some of the cemeteries belong to the 5th and 6th dynasties of Egypt's old kingdom, others, however, Roman times. Now, the reason why he's pointing that out is because up until the 12th dynasty, almost everybody built their pyramids or their tombs the same way. So there is some kind of continuity there. Okay. So from similarity in style, he noticed the plug rock seen in both pyramids, in the pyramid complex in Giza, as well as Amenemhat and their family, right? It was all built the same. And but he noticed when he first approached the site, having been informed of its existence by local workmen, the only thing he could see was a large area covered by limestone chips. Not a single block remained in situ above ground. So it was, a lot of this was destroyed or ransacked in ancient times. So it was almost rubble, right? They had to find these things in the rubbish pile. All right. So the small Coptic cemetery occupied the central area. So by that time, by 1910 or so, the Coptic church took over that area. Okay, nothing wrong with that. So they needed a place to bury their ancestors also. So the Coptic cemetery occupied that space. And since it still appeared to be in use, they didn't want to disturb a lot of things, right? So let's go. Now, this area, okay, was a neglected, half-buried pyramid site, very little studied. It's rarely mentioned, yet one of the most symbolically charged spaces of the Middle Kingdom. This place here was a sacred place, okay, for the Middle Kingdom. All right. So so scholars can attribute this site to Sobekneferu, but here's what we must ask: why is there no body? There's no body there. It's a pyramid site for sure, but just like some older pyramids, the body isn't there, especially Sobekneferu. Okay, why are the sarcophagi sealed but empty? Nobody broke into it. Now, a lot of people did a lot of work around that and through cast stones here and there and all kind of things, ransacked it, but the sarcophagus was untouched, but nobody's there. So why do tunnels lead to nowhere? Some ending abruptly, others twisting into the bedrock like ancient veins. But was these tunnels for those who are in the physical plane? Let's get into it. All right. So because this is not a tomb per se, all right, this is a sacred space. Okay. A temple tomb designed not to house the dead, but to hold vibration. Okay, some people say it's there to hold vibration, to hold energy, to channel resonance, to open a portal. Okay, the pyramid text, utterance 373. I told you we're going to get some of that. Rise yourself, O Teti. Take your head, collect your bones, gather your limbs, ascend to the sky, and sit on your iron throne. So a lot of people would believe that these pyramid areas were sacred spaces and also portals. Okay, for the ancestors to get to the imperishable stars, as it has been said many times before, that the Orion's belt and the Sirius constellation, a lot of our African ancestors point to that place as a point of origin. I don't know, or may not be a point of origin, but a place to the ancestors go. Okay, origin or that future place. I don't know, right? Now, Mazghuna is not a grave; it's a residence chamber built to call power, to assemble to assemble the self across dimensions or across planes. Okay, now, for example, here, this is a false door. This is a false door. Okay, and a lot of people, a lot of Europeans would say that the false door was made uh, to trick, grave robbers. No, no, no. No, it wasn't trick. It wasn't there to trick the grave robbers. It was for the ancestors to pass through into the ancestral world quicker, into the duat. All right. Now, so I got a question. All right, what's beneath the pyramid? What's under there? Now, before I get to that question, no, I got a question. Since we on barbecue and everything, and since we enjoying these groceries, whatnot, I want to know fresh food or leftovers. Like and comment below. All right, let me fresh food, fresh out the oven, off the grill, or leftovers. Like and comment below. Let me know. Now, me myself personally, I'm a straddle the fence with this. I like both. When your stomach is eating your back, okay, you you will grab a host of whatever groceries you can, but it's something about leftovers though. It's something about leftover groceries where the seasoning sits in there good enough to where it really hits different the next day. All right. So let me know, fresh food or leftovers. Let me know. Now, we did talk about a few weeks ago, we did talk about the secret chambers under the pyramids. But we talked, that was the pyramid of Giza. We have to understand that a lot of these pyramids had secret chambers in and around them, labyrinths or chambers or whatever, tunnels or whatever. But we're talking about beneath this pyramid in where Sobekneferu and Amenemhat III was supposedly buried. These shafts were sealed chambers. The quartzite blocks, these were not just architectural features, they were circuits of sacred energy. Yep. They were circuits of sacred energy. Because I told you, a lot of these chambers, a lot of these places weren't for the physical. It was for somebody's spirit. It was for somebody's mind. Okay, so I think that's what it was for. So, quartzite is piezoelectric or piezoelectric. Piezoelectric. It can hold memory. Okay, just like cells. Okay, energy can hold energy. It can hold memory. It vibrates with light and pressure. It remembers frequency. Mazghuna is not a place of burial. Some would say it is a machine of return. I think shout out to Brother Mo. He mentioned the Stargate, the movie Stargate a few weeks ago. It may be something to that. I can't really get into that, but it may be something about that. So, but according to Andrew Collins, it says here from there onward, a series of winding corridors and chambers, one containing a second quartzite plug that led eventually to the pyramid's burial chamber. Inside this stone-cut sepulcher was a monolithic piece of quartzite. Cut into this was a rectangular shape of a sarcophagus, along with a smaller square compartment to contain the canopic jars that would have held the deceased internal organs. So in that space, it was prepared for somebody to be buried there. Okay, but do you think they did that as part of the? Y'all let me know. Like and comment below. Do y'all think the canopic jars, the whole setup, was part of this sacred energy? Y'all let me know, because it happened. You see it a lot, and you see it often. I believe it got to the point to where it went beyond ritual and it went into reality. See what I'm saying? So because these sacred spaces that our ancestors used to be, or ancestors were, it remembers frequency. Okay, my grandmother from she was from Arkansas, and that is a sacred space to me, and it holds a certain energy. Okay, so what do you think? I think that the canopic jars, the false door, the pyramid text, all these things were circuits of sacred energy. It wasn't just one thing. It was several things. It was multiple things. Okay, so a lot of people say, "Oh, is this that? Is that? Is it right on the wall?" No, it's not just the metal nature. Because remember, some of the pyramids did not have metal nature in it. See what I'm saying? So it wasn't just that. It was the whole site, the whole place, and the mentality of the people, right? So goes on to say, what is more, the author found no evidence of a mortuary chapel that would have been necessary for the preparation of the body. They had the canopy, they had the jars, but they didn't have a chapel, which is normally adjacent to the burial site by the pyramid. We already confirmed that nobody was there. Literally, right? So, and these chambers were blocked or could have been broken down, while the floor of the corridor had been destroyed. So I believe the people that built these places for Sobekneferu and her family, they didn't want anybody to know where she was laid to rest at. That's what I think. So, and some people would believe that these places were machines of return. So this is also a mirror to the cosmos, encoded in stone. Okay, a mirror to the cosmos, a mirror to the stars, encoded in stone, a site where divine energies were seated and recalibrated. These spaces weren't just blocks. Okay, remember, as time went on, so Sobekneferu, she went beyond stone into the stars. So Sobekneferu's project was not for the living alone; it was for the returning of the divine identity. A lot of people was reading about it, but she was trying to be about it. Okay, even though she reigned 3.5 years, right? She was trying to do something different and to propel Kemet into a different space. All right. So it was for the returning of the divine identity. Okay. The Amduat, the hour number 5, it says the God or the Neteru opens the hidden gates. The hidden gates. Okay. The Neteru lifts the veils, the light energy emerges from the cavern of creation. Now, shout out to Brother Joe. He asked me a question about the 12 gates in the book of gates. There are 12 gates, and there are 3 ancestors or Neteru guarding them. And each one you have to pass, or you must pass with a password, right? And so this is a story of our ancestors going into the afterlife, right? I'm going ahead of myself, but this is not similar to the Christian resurrection as far as Jesus Christ is concerned. Okay, this is just a story of the ancestors going to the ancestor world, right? So it's not the same. So, but our ancestors for many centuries have told stories of us going over into the realm of the ancestors, right? So let's go. Now, dealing with the what's beneath the pyramid, what lies the pyramid is more important than what stands above it. Okay, because that was a gateway. There was a place of, there was a sacred place, a sacred space, right? So now that same place allowed the ancestors to enter the afterlife or go into the duat. Yeah, yeah. So in the Amduat, the book of the coming forth by day, and the book of coming forth by day, the soul must pass through the gates of fire and judgment, where seven Heteru, lion-headed guardians, and serpent lords ask for the true names and spells. I mentioned that earlier about passwords. Yeah, but I'll come back to that in a second. These were not merely posthumous beliefs, but ritual codes enacted in life. So a lot of these people believe these words were said and done while they were living. Mhm. And so it was written in the architecture of temples and royal tombs. So this was a code. This was something for them to memorize and understand. Right. So here we go. Now, what you see here, all right, somebody asked me, okay, what would or what could Sobekneferu's tomb look like? This is a digital replica of Sobekneferu's tomb. Okay, as you see at the very top left right here is the shaft going downward, right? This is where they would bring her in, and these are the chambers where the artifacts and food and clothes and all these things would go. Okay, but as we notice, after all this, there's nobody there. Okay, but this is a winding staircase, not for those in the physical world, but for the ancestors. Okay, so check this out. McKay in the book noted two somewhat familiar features of Mazghuna North and Sobek, in which might have well been constructed for Sobekneferu's final resting place. Okay, first is the descending shaft, or what like we would call it the ascending shaft. Okay, where the ancestors go upward, right? So the fact that there's an ascending shaft, it shows that it was meant to be for somebody royal. And not only that, it was situated due east. It was going eastward. It was facing east where the sun rises. Okay. So that's another thing. So the easterly placement of the pyramid shaft would simply have been to confuse some tomb robbers, but yeah, it really this was another thing where it was lining up with stars that was coming up in the sky. Okay, so now we also mentioned this though. The ancient mother crocodiles, regicide, rituals, and revenge. We mentioned the celestial cow. We mentioned that the great ancestors go to that place and they where the celestial cow is. Some people would like to intermingle that with Heteru, but in the papyrus text known as the Book of the Heavenly Cow, found in the tomb of the 18th Dynasty King Tut, Heteru as Sekhmet rains down fire on the world after men turn against the sun god or the ancestors, right? So this this was part of that Sekhem. Sekhem was that return that they were talking about. So, and also in those walls there, in the walls, it was red. Okay, it was plastered in red, and most of the time, red is for somebody royal. So, red in ancient Egypt could denote male gender. Okay, of course, we know that Sobekneferu she would interchange that sometimes, as well as Hatshepsut. But being seen, the fact the skin of the statues of reliefs showing men were often painted red. Red was a symbol of Sekhem, great strength, and divine power. So now in this entrance, okay, if you're by the way, if you're enjoying the content, subscribe. Now, before we go further, hold on, I gotta get to this part. This is this is about to be good. So Sobekneferu's funerary beliefs likely included celestial rites. Okay, don't forget to like and subscribe though. All right. Now, rebirth cycles and spiritual ascension. Her alignment with the Fayum and the crocodilian mysteries placed her between two worlds, the material Nile Valley and the invisible celestial river, where Sirius, Orion, and the Pleiades marked gates into the divine realm. I told you before that our ancestors looked at Sirius and Orion's belt as a place where they would go or should go. Now we have the seven stars, Pleiades. Okay, because the book does say first female pharaoh Sobekneferu, goddess of the what? Seven stars. Mm. And so remember, in Kemet, okay, in Kemet, death is not the end. Some would say it's an initiation, a rebirth, a transformation of identity. Okay, it in Kemet, it was a sacred transition. Uh, it 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 goes from the real geography to the geography of the soul with gates, guardians, tests. Only the initiated could navigate through this. So Sobekneferu was a high priest. She was a priest queen, profound with profound wisdom and knowledge, initiated into this. She was born into this. Okay, so Sobekneferu, she knew about the architectural passages, both in temples and in the cosmos. So not just the earthly temples, but the heavenly ones, right? Because almost every temple was lined up with a star constellation. Okay, in the Amduat book of the Come Before by Day, the soul must pass through the gates, and they had to pass. They couldn't pass or repass without proper representation, proper information. Okay, now dealing with that, she and towards the end of her life, she knew that, of course, the walls were closing in on her, so she had to make some adjustments. So she had to go into that final phase, that initiation process. Some believe it was the chamber of ashes where she finally said, "It is what it is." Okay, but the afterlife, known as the Duat, okay, is entered not only in death but through sacred knowledge, cosmic alignment, and ritual mastery. Sobekneferu's pyramid temple does not echo the solar monuments of later dynasties. Her design, that's the reason why I mentioned that her pyramid complex was lined up with stars. Okay, her design reflects a different cosmology, celestial, primordial, and veiled centered. Okay. Now, she was not obsessed with legacy though. She didn't care about that. She knew her time was about to be up. She was building a map through the Duat. She was building a map through the Duat. Okay, Book of the Coming Forth by Day, spell 144 says, I know the names of the seven gates. I know the guardians at each threshold. Okay, so she was preparing to navigate through those doors, right? This was a launch pad. Okay, that place, that sacred space, that pyramid complex was a launch pad for Sekhem or Sekhem, right? Temples weren't just for worship, they were for maps of the Duat. Okay. The entrance hall symbolized this earthly life. The hypostyle hall represented the unknown and beyond. The inner sanctuary and the Jesseru, okay, became the divine womb, the innermost part of the temple, the rebirth chamber of the Neteru and the kings. By mentioning Sobekneferu, okay, it brings her from that ancestral watery plane to where we are, right? So now, speaking of that, the majestic gateway. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about Hatshepsut's temple, the majestic gateway to the gods and the afterlife. We're gonna talk about that because we're gonna break that down. We're gonna break down what the layout symbolizes, what it means. We kind of alluded to it a few seconds ago. The entrance mentioned the external earthly life. The hospital hall represent the unknown, the beyond. The inner sanctuary, the divine womb, or the holy of holies. Right? Like and comment below. Let me know. Now, so far, we talked about the Mazghuna North, what's beneath the pyramid, the entrance to the Duat. Now, we're going to get into the return of Sekhem Sobekneferu, the ancient place of the ancestors, the seven serpents, and a little bit more. And I'm still checking roll because I'm a veteran teacher and I check roll at the end of class. So better not skip. All right, let's go. The return of Sekhem Sobekneferu. This is interesting because we hear the term Sekhem quite a few times as we're reading this book, as we're going through the book. And so I was wondering what that means. But before we get into the actual meaning, let's see what Andrew Collins says. He said in chapter 5, we saw the 13th dynasty, the papyrus found speaks of Sekhem Sobekneferu, a reference seemingly Sobekneferu's at her funerary complex. The term could be reflected in some manner with its design. We should also not forget that Sobekneferu set up a large stone sphinx, okay, at Katana on the site of the Hisco city of Varus. So Sekhem and the Sphinx was connected. Now, for my brother Mo, we are going to make that little connection between Sobek and the Sphinx and all that. So get ready for that though. I'm excited. So if, however, the Mazghuna North pyramid had been intended for Sobekneferu's final resting place, then it can only be imagined that in the wake of her sudden and unexpected death, alternative plans were put in place. So, like, for example, Cleopatra and many others, they had to make some adjustments. So, in the end, however, Sobekneferu was never intended to be laid to rest at Mazghuna. Okay. Her tomb was supposed to be located somewhere else. So, what did happen to her? We don't know. All right, but let's get into it. The word Sekhem meant for more than power. It was a vibrational force, a radiant energy derived from one's alignment with Ma'at, divine order, justice, balance. You know, it represented more than what a lot of people would like to believe. Ma'at is not just Ma'at. It was a way of life in a sense, right? So when the soul, like Sobekneferu's, remanifests in collective memory, because that sacred, we talk about sacred space, sacred energy, right? It is not a metaphor. It is a return of vibration, a rekindling of her spiritual frequency. Now, Sekhem is not just energy, though. It is divine potency. It is divine power. I've mentioned many times on this show, names meant something, and names represented power, right? The life force that animates Neteru, stars, queens, and sacred speech. All these things were connected. In African culture, everything is connected to everything, right? So to say Sobekneferu Sekhem is returning is to say her blueprint is activating again in our time. That's what some people say. Okay, because we always hear about Cleopatra, we always hear about Queen Tayi, Nefertari, but Sobekneferu has entered the chat. I wonder what she has to say. Now, we are seeing her name rise in scholarly texts, her face reemerging in visions and meditations, her memory rising through the ruins, books, and voices just like ours. By us having this conversation, she is returning, or she has returned, right? Like I said, I think I said a few weeks ago, whenever we mention somebody's name, especially if they're gone, they in some form they are living again. They're still living, right? So because Sekhem does not die, it coils like a serpent. It waits beneath the water until the right time to rise again. The coffin text says something like this: my soul speaks with the gods, my Sekhem goes forth radiant, my power, my vitality goes forth radiant. Okay, so Sobekneferu wasn't just a queen; she wasn't just somebody, a placeholder. Okay, she was a conductor of the old forces, the old Neteru, the feminine celestial serpentine forces, eclipsed by later solar orthodoxy body Heliopolitan priests. The priest did not get along with her. Why? Because her mentality and the way she was trained and the way she was initiated was different. And now her return signals a rebalancing, a reset. What do you think, though? Do you think by her coming back, by her coming into the 12th dynasty like that, do you think by her showing up in those 3.5 years or whatever, you think it triggered or tried to initiate a rebalance? You think she came to bring forth balance or rebalancing? Like and comment below. Let me know. But yeah, I really believe that. I believe that the books and a lot of rhetoric and a lot of talk and a lot of temple speeches and everything. And here she is. Okay, so Sobekneferu, right? All right. So in a sense, the return of Sekhem, a return of this power. So Sobekneferu is not just historical reclamation; it was a spiritual activation. Sekhem was transmitted through rituals, names, architecture, music, and star alignments. I told you before, her tomb was aligned with stars and not with the sun. Her name carried a vibration for a balance. Sobek, the primal force of the happy river of the Nile River, and Neteru, okay, beauty, harmony, or Neferu, beauty, harmony, inner perfection, right? So through the temples of Crocodiliopolis, okay, in other words, Sadet, the rituals of the Fayum, she anchored divine feminine energy into a world increasingly dominated by solar priesthoods and doctrinal rigidity. These priests did not like her because she came with a different kind of energy. She brought a different kind of power. And the thing is, y'all, you guys, wherever you guys go, you have to bring a positive energy or some kind of refreshing light wherever you are. Okay. Don't just be there just to be there. Don't just be there and say, hey, I'm glad to be here. Be there to make change. Be there to make adjustments. Okay. If you're tired of the same things going on over and over again, be the change, be the light. Okay. So her statues, some masculine, some feminine, were conductors of Sekhem polarity, balancing left and right, moon, sun, order, and chaos. We mentioned before these statues were a way to house the ancestors, another place where the energy could go. And that's why they put food and items in some of those tombs. Why? So the ancestors could eat, right? That's the reason why we would pour libations and things so they can get some water also, right? Now, the temple of the crocodile. Yeah. So Sobekneferu wasn't just a queen, she was a conductor of the old forces. Okay, she was a power. Okay, through the temple, through those temples, the Kemetic energy, the Kemetic science returned. Okay, so the temple of the crocodile. All right, so at Fayum, the crocodiles were mummified, okay, ornamented and venerated, and not feared. I would have been afraid of crocodiles. I'm not gonna lie to you. You got that, bro. I'm not gonna. You got it. I'm not gonna fool with that, right? But deep in the Fayum, this in the sacred city later called Shadet, and then Crocodiliopolis, stood a temple unlike any other, dedicated to the living Sobek, whose sacred crocodiles were adorned in gold, lapis, and ritual perfumes. To the uninitiated, to people who didn't know or understand, this may have seemed weird or strange or primitive, but to the priests and the queens, especially Sobekneferu, Sobek was the guardian of the divine force, a protector of the watery abyss, and the embodiment of the latent cosmic force. Okay, the crocodile in African cosmology represents more than danger. It is primordial wisdom, guardianship, and the threshold between death and regeneration. Its eyes, just above the water, symbolizes a being who watches. Being who watches both submerged the world, the submerged world of the unconscious and the sunlit world of the form. Hold on, the fam is talking. What's going on? Okay, lovely. Okay, hello, nice to listen. Shout out to the fam. What's going on? Metal Nature, I see you. I can. Yeah, we up. All right, we got a few more episodes for the Queens of the South. Shout out to the fam that's coming through. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. But yeah, this is about to get a little different. And I'm not done. We got a little bit of Kemetic science towards the end because everybody's been asking about it, and we're about to get into it. But I'm doing some light jabs right now, and you came just in time. All right, so we're talking about the Temple of the Crocodile. Temple of the Crocodile. Shout out to the fam, Meta Nature. Really appreciate it. Now, here it is. So the crocodile was between the seen and unseen. Okay, that's profound. All right, they would go between those spaces. When they submerge, we don't know where they're going, what they're doing, or what. Right. So the temples dedicated to Sobek were not only for devotion; they were mystery schools. We talked about that, right? They taught them these weren't just places of prayer, but it was for science, technology, and knowledge. And so the inner chambers held solar-lunar grids, and the priests of Sobek performed rites that involve submersion, chant, and astral projection. Mm. Let me know. All right, let me know if you want us to get into that. All right. So they aligned their ceremonies to the rising of Sirius and the inundation of the Nile, calling down the life force of the cosmos into the life-giving, into the living waters. Here's the thing: the in the let me get this in the book there is a rather peculiar temple. Okay, peculiar temple. All right. And so it's a three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle, basically. All right. Three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. The Qasir al-Saga temple possesses several highly unusual features, making it almost unique to the dynastic architecture of ancient Egypt. To start, okay, metanetric. So you playing. There are 3 degrees of knowledge. We about to lean into something. We're about to lean into some information. Let's get into it. 33 degrees and maybe 360 by the time we all get done. Right? Let's go. Now, and so this is made up of 3 basic levels of construction. This small little building here is built of 3 levels of construction. The middle, the lowest composed of rough rock extracted from the platform, okay, just barely off the ground. The middle section is of white sandstone, with the uppermost layer being of hard limestone. 3 levels. All right. Yeah. And now, not only that, on the inside of it, okay. Normally, stone temples in ancient Egypt were built using regular blocks. Their exposed surfaces cut and dressed to create a perfect finish. This, however, was not the case at this temple. Its exterior walls bear an uncanny resemblance to those of the pre-Incan and Incan buildings in Peru. All right. Shout out to the Kemetic nation. All right. they will they will really be appreciative and happy that I mentioned that. Okay, there is some connection to it. All right, there is something that they're very good about that. They're very thorough. So shout out to Kemetic Nation about that. I think we need to bring them back. Matter of fact, y'all let me know. Type in y'all comment Kemetic Nation if you want Kemetic Nation to come back. Let me know. All right. So, but now in the building is oriented 20.3 degrees southwest and 20.3 degrees north of east. Okay, allowing this doorway located midway along the southern wall to face outward like towards the lake. Okay, now the internal features though. See that on the inside there? All right, the internal features on the inside of that's what got a lot. Now we already got 3 layers, right? But on the inside, there are 7 chambers. There's 7 chambers in this little temple. Okay. On entering inside the temple, Petrie found himself in a long, narrow corridor that ran the entire length of the building and allowed access to small rooms located at either end. On the north side of the corridor were a series of 7 cells or shrines divided from one another by stone walls and carved door frames. There was 7 chambers here. It was built, basically 3 layers or 3 levels, 7 chambers, and the central one was slightly larger than the rest, suggesting it served a more prominent role. Okay. Now, one further compartment, completely hidden with no entrance, lay beyond it. They believe that little space is for like regalia for little items. But these small shrines, they believe that these were places for ritual uses, maybe as a compartment for the Neteru, to place little ornaments and things there. Okay. But yeah, look, check this out. This is pretty interesting here if you can see it. Yeah. So that small place and that small little space there, it is very profound. Okay, it's totally different than other places, right? So let's continue. Let's get it. All right. So they align their ceremonies to the rising of Sirius and the inundation of the Nile, calling down the life force cosmos into the living waters. Okay. Now, Sobekneferu's patronage of these temples signaled more than piety. It was a political and metaphysical act. Okay, she rooted her authority not in Theban Waset dogma, but in the original waters of Kemet, where Sobek ruled before Ra ascended in the sky. I'm getting right back to that because I learned something about Ra about a couple of weeks ago. Now, Sobekneferu, her rule thus becomes a return to the womb of the Nile. She was trying to reset everybody back to its original source, right? The origin of all life and the invocation of the oldest guardian force, which is Sobek and some primordial Neteru, the ancient ancestors. Because before the pharaohs, there was a group of pharaohs called the Shimsu Haru, or the followers of Haru. And before that, it mentioned Ra, Osiris, and Tahuti, and many others as being real life living rulers in pre-dynastic the Nile Valley. This is more than 10,000 years old. Okay. Shout out to Library Without Borders. Hello, King. Glad I made it for your live. Yep. Really appreciate it. Now, Library Without Borders did make a humble request. I have not forgot. She made a request by asking about the connection between the Bakongo and Kemet. There is a connection. I read it. We're gonna get into that. Okay, we're gonna get into that. All right. So shout out to the fam, and don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe. But yeah. So now here we go. So Sobekneferu was trying to do a callback to the old ways, right? Now, as we mentioned before, the rise of the Heliopolitan priests in chapter 3 brings us to the harder transformation, the rise of priesthood. They wanted to connect to Ra and Atum in a more of a hierarchy process and not like the Ennead where everybody was equal. That was a problem. Another problem is the Heliopolitan priests, they rewrote the African cosmology. They want to rewrite everything. This was not a religious evolution. This was a spiritual takeover. And Sobekneferu and her camp didn't like that. Under Sobekneferu, a woman who had inherited the rule from the sacred bloodline tied to the crocodile Neteru and the primal waters, the Heliopolitan doctrine was a problem. Okay. It was a fire overtaking water, sun overpowering the hidden stars, patriarchal theology supplanting the cosmic feminine. It's supposed to be a balance. It shouldn't be male over female, female over male. It should be a balance. And what was happening in the Middle Kingdom, what was happening in the 12th dynasty, it was out of balance. It's fat. And you'll see that later on when Akhenaten takes over, and he was totally out of balance. Let's argue. Akhenaten was straight up out of balance. And Cleopatra was too. Yeah, she went on. Yeah, I said it. Cleopatra was out of balance too. Don't at me. You understand me? I don't care. All right. Now, so during this time, during the rise of the Heliopolitan priests, these priests aligned themselves with political factions who no longer saw divinity in the female body or the female mind, nor legitimacy in female rule. In their doctrine, the queen or Queen Sobekneferu became an anomaly, a disruption, and an obstacle, right? The spiritual political rise of the Heliopolitan priesthood, to understand the gravity, we'll go back, but we'll go back a little bit later. Now, let's go. The place of the ancestors. Okay, I mentioned that Sobekneferu's supposed burial place is a sacred space, right? And I told you before that Sobekneferu was aligned herself not just with the Neteru, but also with the ancestors. Okay, which was very important. And I think the issue with her brother or stepbrother was that he did not align himself with his father or stepfather and the ancestor. He decided to go on with the Hiskos, which totally threw everything off, right? So we have the place of the ancestors, and it's kind of personal because I know that this is Memorial Day weekend, right? And we all, and of course, in America, on Memorial Day weekend, we are celebrating or memorializing those soldiers who died in combat, right? But in the black community, um, Memorial Day was a time where we remembered our ancestors. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. That's whenever we got together in Memorial Day weekend, that's what we do, right? And so in this case, Sobekneferu, she was trying to be that threshold between the present and past and the future. Okay, she chose to align with Sobek. It wasn't political; it was cosmic. She ruled through Sobek to claim her role as bridge between worlds, between genders, between forces. Sobek, green, a plume coming out of the abyss. He who opens the way for the justified, right? That's the Book of the Dead, spell 108. Her invocation of Sobek is a call to guardianship, not over an empire, but over transformation. Now, Mazghuna, okay, Sais Harawa, the Valley of the Kings, KV-25, all of them were not forgotten sites. They were dormant temples. They were dormant temples built for cosmic seeds. They was built for cosmic seeds. The ancestors didn't bury their dead. They planted them. Each pyramid, each place was a womb of return. Okay, according to our ancestors. And Sobekneferu's structure is not built for ego. It was built for resonance and remembrance, not just to not to be filled with wealth and money or gold, but to be activated, to be charged by those who remember her. The coffin text said, the soul is born again in the hidden chamber surrounded by divine essence. Sobekneferu's final initiatory station may have been eliminated from public view, okay? But within the oral memory of the Nile Valley, her spirit lingers in the Old Kingdom ruins in places where the ancestors walked among the Ba spirits and the Anku spirits. Okay, the Anku light, the ancient place of the ancestors, whether Hawa, Dashur, or even the submerged corridors beneath Lake Morris, represents a layer of reality where time bends. Time is no more. The living and the ancestors share secrets. It's there where Sobekneferu's legacy was encoded. Okay. Now, in its most esoteric teaching, the priesthood, the place of the ancestors is not just a burial ground. It was a dimensional field, a library of light where the codes of past sovereigns await reactivation by those a pure heart and a pure mind and ready to roll. So Sobekneferu may have vanished from dynastic records, but she endures in these hidden strata as one of the last female niches of the primordial Neteru. I told you she was connected to the ancient Neteru, not the modern. Okay, so and let me get to what the book says. It says they connected themselves to the ancestral Neteru. The pharaohs of the 12th dynasty would undoubtedly have been aware of these places. There was places where, like the Valley of the Whales, where they had bones of, say, larger reptilian species was out there and exposed. And so they would connect them to the underworld monsters or some sort of deceased in ancient Egyptian tradition where in the Book of Two Ways, the snake-like creatures were shown moving about with features seen as large and very powerful. So You see these snake-like creatures in the Book of Two Ways, the Coffin text, and many others. So these were seen, these large snake-like things and skeletons or whatever were in those places. These were prehistoric settlements in Kemet. And so what they did was build temples close to the place of the ancestors. They believed that this was part of the Zep Tepi. Okay. So the pharaohs of the 12th dynasty would undoubtedly have been aware of these places, and they would build them they would build their pyramid fields next to them. Okay. So now, Sobekneferu may have vanished, but she still lives, right? Now, dealing with this. Oh man. Now, the snake deity. I don't deal with snakes. I don't deal with crocodiles. I don't deal with a lot of things, right? But the ancestors did, right? Because Geb and Renuet were both associated with the Fayum, and each has serpentine forms, which should alert us to fairly obvious fact that the region would appear to have been associated with the past, with a primordial spirit. Okay, so the Fayum was connected to the ancient Neteru. See, a lot of people would, of course, which is right, we would believe that, of course, from the knowledge came from the south, and a lot of culture came from Waset and even in Nubia. However, Fayum had some knowledge and culture too, and had a lot of ancient knowledge too. So the snakes and the crocodiles were their train of thought, right? Don't forget to greet everybody as you come in too. All right. Now, so one of Geb's primary animistic forms was that of the snake. Okay. Indeed, from as early as the Pyramid Age, Geb was seen as the father of all snakes. It was the attribution born out of the fact that the snake was a primary symbol of creation, regeneration. And you will see that snake in a circular form where it never ends, right? So the snake goddess, okay, the snake goddess, papyrus documents dating from the Greco-Roman period. There is Dima al-Siba, okay, the northern finals speak of a snake deity named Nefersati, okay, name also called as Neferstasis, okay, that is a snake goddess there, okay. There is a cult center in the Fayum also that represented the snake goddess. Now, Sobekneferu, she was connected to Sobek and the seven stars. Her legacy is not just etched into stone; it is written into the stars. Okay, we get to that in a second. So Sobekneferu represented a different strand of Kemetic spirituality. She was linked to the primordial waters of Noon and the seven Heteru. Okay, this was a direct pre-solar stellar based tradition that saw the stars as a source of divine cycles, not the sun alone. Okay, now we're almost done. Really quick, we're almost done. For this series, Queens of the South series. We got one more episode. We talk about the fall from grace. What happened to her? What all factions were involved? I'm thinking about doing it Friday though, because we have to do something else. We got to do something else. We got a surprise for you. All right. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. This is like almost the end, right? Her fall from grace. What happened to her? What was going on, right? And so in the esoteric Ennead, we talked about the solar code and cosmic gatekeeping. We talked about how the Book of Gates and all those things and the Ennead were all part of a system, a metaphysical code, right? And now dealing with Sobekneferu and her alignment with Heteru and Net. Okay, so Sobekneferu, she was not just in stone, but she was written in the stars. Okay, she was not merely a queen who ruled on the earth, but a guardian of celestial wisdom, deeply attuned to the seven stars. Okay, in ancient constellation feminine power associated in Kemet with the seven Heteru gatekeepers of fate, time, and destiny. These seven were more than stars; they were divine archetypes reflecting the face of the Neteru, and each whispering the secrets of your soul's journey across lifetimes. Now, her connection, Sobekneferu's connection to seven stars signifies that her reign was guided not only by the Nile, but the timeless rhythm of the cosmos, the universe. The book of coming forth by day, the deceased soul must pass through seven gates, often guarded by seven Heteru. or Hathors. I'm sorry, Hathors. Each gate is a test of integrity, balance, and spiritual identity. So Sobekneferu was a living initiate of these mysteries. She knew that stuff. Okay. Now, pyramid text utterance 571 says, "Rise yourself, O Osiris, take your throne. May your Ba live, your Ka be mighty, your Sa'u shine in the sky like Ra." Okay, that is in the pyramid text. So, like and subscribe. Now, so these seven Heterus were gatekeepers of fate, time, and destiny. These seven are more than stars; they were divine archetypes. So they all represented something. So Sobekneferu's affinity signifies her reign was guided by the Nile, but by the cosmos. Okay. Now, once again, I keep saying this, but you gotta understand, each gate is a test. We all go through them, right? So Sobekneferu is a living initiate, and she was a living initiate of these mysteries and coded herself with the stellar map of resurrection, a journey to the imperishable star. So she was, like I said before, she was the connection to the old ways, and she was taking us on a journey to the imperishable stars. She was the last to really do that kind of thing. Everybody else before the 12th dynasty, it was all pyramid text, right? But after that, it was the Book of Coming Forth by Day and Coffin text and the Book of Gates. Old order, new order, right? Now, she was a queen aligned with the Duats, the underworld, yes, but also sky temples of sacred astronomy. It wasn't just earthly temple that she was knowledgeable about, it was the sky also. She understood that what the priesthood feared, that the stars are not cold points of light, but beings, codes, guides, and the true temples of origin. Our ancestors kept pointing us to Sirius, and she knew about that. Now, the priests may have talked about it, but not so much, right? So her legacy reveals that power is not only dynastic, but it is astronomic and spiritual. Okay, the womb and the waters are equal to the throne and the crown, and the seven stars are real gateways seen in both the sky and the temple, guiding the soul through initiation, death, and rebirth. And so when the priesthood of Heliopolis sought to elevate the solar Neteru, the solar code alone, Sobekneferu held stellar code. She held a universal code, a code of Ma'at. She embodied primordial balance, the power of Sobek, the crocodile, the master of chaos, the protector of Ma'at, and the wisdom of the seven. The seven stellar mothers, I'm sorry, whose song is carried through the waters of time. So now, Sacred Seven are hidden in many names, so you hear it a lot, okay? And we may get into that. Let me know. Type the word seven in there. Seven Heteru, the Pleiades who visit each year in the flood season, the seven souls of Ra, the seven tones of the Sekhem energy, the seven forms of Net and Isis. And this is the second time we mentioned Net, and so we may have to lean it. We may have to get into that also, right? Now, speaking of that. Yep. We got it. Now I have something in mind dealing with the primordial Neteru Net. I do the primordial goddess. I do have something lined up, so stay tuned for that. But we've been hearing this a lot, right? And so dealing with Net. I got my little notes here. She's the first one, the veiled one, the mother of all deity. Matter of fact, she gave birth to Ra. I heard somebody say that, but this is the first. Yeah, Net is the one that gave birth to Ra. Wow. And so on her temple at Sais is written, "I am that which has been and is and shall be. No mortal has lifted my veil." Okay. I mentioned the veiled queen, right? Net is the goddess of weaving, life, death, destiny. She's the great weaver, right? And she is this beyond polarity. So Sobekneferu daughter is the daughter of Net in the mystical, in a initiate or mystical sense. Channel her veiled science. She did not rule for conquest. She ruled to preserve sacred memory and hold open the portals of return. Now, when we think about Sobekneferu, when we think about what is happening, okay, um, the book of the coming forth by day, the book of gates, the Amduat, we find reference of the seven serpents, the guardians of light, transformation of truth. These serpents are not monsters; they were the initiators. They wrap around the soul like coils of protection. Because remember, Wajet, the cobra was symbolized. They was the protector. They burn illusion and test worth. Okay, so Bekneferu would have known their names, their frequencies, and their sacred spells that aligned with their force, right? And so the serpent in Kemet is a symbol of divine intelligence, medical power, and resurrection. But yeah, we're gonna deal with the primordial Neteru, the pre-dynastic, and everything else. But so she was as a Neteru. She was a complex duality. She was a creator, a destroyer, mother and warrior, mystic, and monarch. Matter of fact, I think all of our sisters embody these principles. Okay, they can be a lot of things, and they can do them all well. Okay, now so her name is often interpreted as the terrifying one or she who is. Net speaks to her primordial self-generated nature. She is one of the few deities believed to have created herself, the mother of mothers in a sense, right? A rare distinction that sets her apart from many Neteru who emerged from the cosmic waters of Noon or by divine parents. Okay, speaking of that, the primordial waters of Noon, the concept of Noon represents far more than a mere mythological abstraction. It is fundamental substrate of existence, the infinite, dark, formless primordial ocean, and that predates all creation in ancient Egyptian cosmology. The primordial waters of Noon existing in a state of complete undifferentiation. Noon embodies the ultimate potential of universal creation, a limitless expanse of dark, turbulent waters that contain within themselves the seeds of all possible manifestation, right? Now, in the most profound symbolic interpretation, Noon is not only physical space, but a metaphysical space. It could be complete or absent of distinction. It can have form, it can have no form, it can be bound, it can be subject, object, it can be absolute or none at all. Right? Now, the symbolic significance of the Noon extend beyond more mere cosmological description. It represents the philosophical concept of emergence or becoming. And so Sobekneferu basically was somebody that was becoming not just a person or a queen or whatever, but becoming a star. Okay. So now, like I said, Net gave birth to Ra. According to ancient tradition, according to ancient Kemetic people, she gave birth to Ra. And I think that she's requiring some of our attention in this era. Okay. Now, so Sobekneferu was not a footnote in history. She was a cosmic architect, a priestess king, Sekhem bearer, whose resonance is felt today. The return of her name is not just archaeological, it is initiatory. The question is, can you hear it? That's the question. Can you feel the vibration beneath the pyramids? Do you understand what is happening, right? So now we talked about ancient creators, crocodiles, and the cosmos. Return to the Sekhem Sobekneferu. Yeah, what's going on? Let me see who else. I think some got before we, because I haven't checked roll yet, and I haven't gave the good news either. But I think somebody mentioned 7. Okay, Meta Nature. Okay, take your time. Well, here's the thing. I think I've been purposefully going through the content gradually, and with purpose. I don't want to rush through anything. So that's the reason why it took us from like late February all the way up until now, March until now, to go through the information. Whatever you guys want me to discuss, I would do my homework and bring it to the forefront. So I really appreciate it. Metanet, you mentioned 7. Yeah, okay. I got something for that. I got see, some of y'all have figured out if I pitch something, if I pitched an idea, chances are chances are I already got it somewhere. And shout out to Isu, shout out to him. Okay, greetings, my people. What's going on? Yeah, yeah, it's a must. At this point, I think people are tired of surface stuff, and I think it's time for us to kind of get into detail, get into depth with the information that we have. For the last few years, for those who've been following me, I've done like brief overviews of the continent of Africa. But what I've noticed, a lot of people like it when I go into detail with, say, Nubia or Ethiopia or Kemet. So that's the reason why we begun book studies and holding those kind of conversations, right? Speaking of that, yep. Speaking of Nubia, here we go. Thrones of Fire and Temples of Light, the Kandeki Queens, and Esoteric Knowledge of Ancient Kush. That's coming out next Sunday. I had to go on and get ready for that. Yeah. So this is a response to this is basically a part 2 to the Amazing Civilization of Ethiopia. It is an older video I put out about a year ago. And yeah, it a lot of people enjoyed that video. So I decided to go into Sudan, and we're going to talk about the Lion Temple of Naka and all that. Get ready for that. And yeah, we're going to get into Temples of Fire and Thrones of Light. So hopefully, if nothing changes, we'll get into that next Sunday. And we got a new series. This summer, Ethiopia, the pillar of African civilization. Okay, a lot of people have asked about or inquired about Ethiopian history. And Ethiopia is my heart. Ethiopia and Sudan. I know Kemet is good, but I like for the people to go further south. And Ethiopia is where we can start. That is one of our pillars on my podcast. The pillars is Ethiopia. It is Kush, Kemetic science, and then there was a fourth one. So and of course the hidden tech. So we have hidden technology, hidden knowledge, right? So we have esoteric. So we have Ethiopia, we have Kush, we have Kemet, and we have Kemetic and Kushite science, right? So this is part 1 because somebody asked me to make a discussion, a host of discussion connecting, say, the big 3 religions and Kemet. That's already done, bro. We have enough. We have plenty of podcasts out there in the world that discuss all that all the time. We're going to talk about Ethiopia, and we're going to talk about Nubia by itself. Okay. And I think they need to get a shine. They need to get their shine. And if you want to get into that, here's the books for the summer. Okay. We're going to get the links in the description. The Ethiopians of History by Richard Pankhurst. Okay. And Kebra Nagast. And guess what? Yep, I have my book. I wrote my first book. Yeah, The Crusades and Jihad in East Africa. This is my very first book. Okay, I've been sitting on this for years. And I finally published it. It's Religious Conflict and their Impact. It really goes into medieval East Africa. Okay, and a lot of people talk about the Crusades. A lot of people discuss the Crusades, and when they talk about Middle Ages, during the medieval period, they skip over to West Africa, right? And so what happens is nobody knows what was going on with Sudan and Ethiopia. So yeah, it's a smaller read, but it's a little something, right? So, but we will host a discussion. I will do something, a discussion on the book, a little mini series of the Crusades and Jihad in East Africa by me. And so yeah, so the link is in the it'll be in the pinned comment. So if you want to get one, go get that. All right. So yeah, I'm very excited about that. It's a long time coming. Oh, hold on. Is it sorry I meant that say that that's exciting about Ethiopian Nubia? Yeah, yeah. It's very exciting. And I think it is called for. I really think it's called for. I think the people need to uh I think people need to understand that Kemet isn't the only place in the Nile Valley that has civilizations that have power. Okay, so I have also in development a online course. Okay, an online course. Uh, Meta says, "Don't diminish your work. There's nothing little about it." Well, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so I will be in the. I'm in the plans of getting some online courses and consulting. For those who don't know me, I am a history teacher for real. For real, I teach high school, and I'm a department chair for the social studies department, and I'm a mentor teacher. So now in the coming months or in about another year, I'll be doing some consulting where I would teach people how to teach history. There is a way to do it. Okay, there is a way to do it, and we are going to use a small book to kind of use it as a base. But I want other people to teach history, and I love history. So if I'm doing it for my school district, I might as well do it for the people, right? So we will have some online courses as well as some consulting about how to break down or teach history to others, because I can't do this by myself, and I don't intend to, right? And you guys are great, and you guys are great at what you do. So let's work together at that. Yeah, yeah. You wrote a yeah. He said, "OMG, you wrote a book. Congratulations." Yes, I did. I bet. Yeah, yeah. It's yeah. Talks about some military orders, battle for Constantinople. It talked about Mercuria, Alodia. Yeah, it talks about swords and the scimitar, Saladin. Yeah, I guess and the kings of the east. So there are some Ethiopian and Nubian kings that said no. All right. So but yeah, are there any other before I turn you loose? Okay, before I turn you loose, are there any other questions or concerns? Any other questions or concerns? Okay. We're almost done. We got one more episode, Queens of the South, and we about to get into Ethiopia in a few weeks. So, are there any? Oh, I forgot to check roll. That's what I forgot to do. Oh, get the book, First Female Pharaoh, Sobekneferu. All right, roll call. Trying to get this. Trying to get that good old roll call. One Voice Africa, Solomon Food and Vlogs, G-Man 77, Quest, Queens of King Empire, Mo, Brother Mo. Shout out to Brother Mo. Shout out to Brother Ferguson, Brother Rashad Davis, Ancient Divinations, Adrian Rice, Library Without Borders. Shout out to Peggy Harrison, Miss Blue, Indigo Prince, uh, Makadiro Ankara. Okay. Kiara Haynes, DFW African American Museum. Now, shout out to brother Elliot Grant. He's been trying to get me outside for since the beginning of this year, and we are trying to. We may do some work with the DFW African American Museum. Stay tuned. But he's been trying to get me active, so I guess I'm gonna go outside a little bit. And by the way, shout out to Pan African Bookstore in Dallas. Shout out to Jay Williams, Mark Carroll. These people have added value to the conversation, or they're just now, they just subscribe. So, Anuti Davida, General Bunches, Kemetic Nation, Clark Nation, Supreme, Didi, and Zep Tepi Slim. Now, if you are present and I didn't call your name, comment here. Comment here. Okay. All right. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Metanetrics. Yeah, it's summer school. But I gotta say, give me at least a week or so. Because give me a week or so, and then we'll kick off summer school like mid June or so. We're gonna do that. It is a episode situation, but I know me, and I may throw out a few bonuses. So, but yeah, summer school is upon us. You know what I'm saying? Because every year we've been doing summer school almost every year, almost every year. So and thankfully we was able to land on Ethiopia. So I think Ethiopia and Kush, that's what's up. So, okay, Brother Ferguson. Okay, he said here. Yeah. Oh, and Brother Ferguson, I think I answered your question earlier. I hope you, hope you get that about the 12 gates and everything. So, yeah. I get. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys for rolling with us. It's been a blessing. It's been a journey. And the reason why I do this, I say it many times, but I'm gonna say it again. The reason why I do this is because our curriculum was not representing our demographic. It wasn't representing our people. So therefore, after a long series of meetings and they decided to keep the curriculum as is, I decided to make this podcast here. And you guys are making this podcast awesome. You guys are the reason why I keep doing this. Like all the questions you guys ask, all the comments and everything, you guys are an encouragement to me. And I really appreciate that. It's just summer school gonna be lit. Yeah, it's gonna be lit. Yeah. All I got is number. I got number time, and my birthday's coming up, so we finna do something. Yeah. So now, if you like the content, share it with someone who you think might enjoy it, or share it on Facebook or Pinterest. Okay. And yeah, we just got to talking about the ancient creators, crocodiles, and the cosmos to return to the Sekhem Sobekneferu. Now, before I turn you loose, are there any questions or concerns? And tell me where you're from. Matter of fact, since we all here, comment where you're from. Comment where you're from. State, country. Let me see. Texas. All right. Let me know where you're from. Okay. And those who are in the replay, comment where you're from. All right. I know some people are from California. Some people are from New York, Germany. I know. Shout out to the family in Germany. Shout out to the family in Morocco. Baba Yahya Shabaka. He is in Morocco. Shout out to him. Baltimore. Okay. Okay. Man, I got a question. Brother Watkins, I got a question. Because I was watching the show and they have cowboys. Do they have cowboys in Baltimore? Do they have like horses and stuff in Baltimore? I need to know. All right. LA. Okay, the time difference is something. Okay, Texas. Okay, we up. Okay, but Isu said Ethiopia, but living in Canada. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that. I learned something new today. Oh, by the way, I got my shirt on today. Got my Queens of the South shirt. Get that. But yeah, horses in Baltimore. I didn't know that. They were used to sell fruit and produce. I'm born and raised in Texas, so I just think anything south of the Mason-Dixon, y'all ain't got no horses up there. That's what I think. Yeah. Okay, but yeah. Okay, Canada. Okay. All right. Okay. This is Pimilco racetrack. Okay. Mananetta says you want a shirt. Okay, very good. I'm going to put that also in the description. I do have merch. I also have shirts and merch, but yes, this is the Queens of the South shirt. I have some others. And Brother Mo, he's going to give me. I am going to add some new designs coming up this summer. But yes, I'll put that in the description also. Some shirts and all the things. So I'm the book and the shirt. Okay, got it. All right. Now, so we got Ethiopia this summer. In the fall, we will discuss the book. In a little bit in the fall, we will discuss the book and some other stuff. Nope. That's my shirt. So I snatched the shirt, snatched that shirt off. No, it's my size. So, all right. So, but yeah. So there. Before we go, catch me. Don't let me catch you in the street. Oh no, I'm real fast. I'm real fast. But before we go, are there any other questions or concerns before we go? I really appreciate you guys hanging with me. You guys are awesome. And we got one more. We got one more episode, one more season. We got the season finale. And then we're going to get into Thrones of Fire and Temple of Light the next Sunday. So what I try to do is do two. Try to do two episodes a week. I try to do a live. Normally it's on a Sunday, but it's holiday weekend. And if it's not on the Sunday, it's gonna be on a Friday. But midweek, I try to throw in a recap or just a spinoff altogether. But yeah, I really appreciate it. I love you guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for rolling with me. This is year 5. This is year 5 for us. It's pretty awesome. So, but you guys are great. You guys are great. So if there's nothing else, okay, you listen to King Cam Ujumbe podcast, Ujumbe means message, and I will make sure. Oh, I forgot. I make sure I put the book and the shirt. Okay, I got it. All right, and I will talk to you guys later.